Hello, Gary. What's up, friend? Thank you. What's up, Dr. Martin? Thanks for joining in. Hey. One of those sluggish Sunday mornings. I need a beverage too. Are you taking orders, Gary? Feel like I should go get my glasses. Give me a second, guys. I'm gonna go grab my glasses. I'm having an old man moment. Oh my God! I'll be right back. What about that? I hate this. Sometimes I realize that I'm getting older, and today is one of those days where my eyes are like, okay, Jermaine, you trying to read the comments? What's going on, guys? Yeah, before I had Jermaine today, noticing that I'm squinting at the comments, I'm like, oh, this is not a good sign. It's what it is. I don't like contact lenses. I really don't. It's what it is. Glad to still be on this damn planet. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's going to be a rather interesting conversation. It's funny, when you prep for a show, you realize you don't know a lot about a lot of things. And surrogacy is one of those things that I realized I didn't know a lot about. What's up, Vince? Hey, hey! Thank you so much. I know. I do not like contacts, Dr. Martin. They annoy me. I think I have this phobia of just putting things in my eyes. If I could, you know, get past that. But, yeah. But that's that. Try to get frames to compliment this old round bulbous head of mine. But this is going to be a rather informative conversation for both me and you guys, I'm hoping. What's up, man? Yeah, it's like I said, you realize you just don't know a lot about a lot of things. And as I was prepping for this, I was like, wow, I don't know this, I don't know that, but I only have like a good 50 minutes to find out as much as I possibly can and relay it to you guys. But nonetheless, folks, welcome to Soapbox Sunday. I am Jermaine Taylor. Folks, I'm waiting on my guest to jump on. She should be on pretty quickly, Donna there. But, folks, I'm Jermaine Taylor. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the chaotic hypocrisy that transpired in our capital over this past week. Those people are the least of us. There's just no excuse. However, with that being said, it is incumbent upon me even more to tell the stories of us, those many citizens in this country that make the best of us. There are a lot more of us than them. This week they had the microphone, they had the bully pit, they had our attention. But don't get it twisted, folks. There are a lot more of us, a lot more people that are uplifting this country than it is of them. So with that being said, I have decided to dig even deeper and find even more compelling stories of us and people that we live among that make our country really, really, really great. And today I have a sister, Donna Woods, who, I gotta tell you, she is one special lady. She hasn't jumped on yet. So, Anthony, if you could possibly let her know that we are on, and to go ahead and send me the request, I'll do a little bit more filler. But she is one special lady. She's there from Houston, Texas. It's often, I guess we'll say it's often metaphorical, I should say, when we say someone serves as a vessel. But this woman, she literally used her body as a house, as a pod, so that a family could have and experience life. It's an amazing thing. She's a surrogate. And when I found out a few years ago that she was doing this, I was intrigued then, but I didn't have this platform to tell you guys about it. But now it just so happens that everything is meeting at the right time. And I am so glad to tell you guys her story. So her name is Donna Woods. I'm waiting on her to jump on. There she goes. Hey, send me the request, Donna, and we'll be good. All right, folks. Wait 1 second, and I'm gonna have Donna Woods to hop on. What's up, Makita? I think you're Anthony and Donna's younger sister. What's up, Lovey?
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I am great. Give you a little time to get your camera set up. Folks, this is Houston, Texas, Donna Woods. Look at that beautiful face. Represented. She is a distance runner. She blogs it and she highlights her many accomplishments by running marathons, something that I'm not interested in doing ever. I will tell you that now. I like to work out. I like to jump rope, but I do not like long distance running. A self-described fitness enthusiast. And folks, the proof is in the pudding. If you ever see her, the woman has a brick house of a body. I got to tell you. She does. She's a mother of two, and she is the subject of today's Soapbox Sunday, a special delivery. Donna, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me and asking. I'm excited.
Yay! So, Donna, it's always been my philosophy, and a lot of people agree with me, and some people don't. But I feel like we spend the gist of our adulthoods trying to realize that person we wanted to be as children. You know, I just do. I often think of who I am, who I was as a kid, and who I dreamed I would be. And I still find myself aiming for those goals even into my adult years. And when I tell anyone's story, I like to build the foundation by just diving a little bit into those times that they could possibly remember. Because I don't remember a lot about my childhood, but I remember those touchstones. So that 6, 7, 8-year-old Donna, did she have a whole lot of dolls in her room that she played with?
I had dolls somewhat. You know, Cabbage Patch Kids were big then.
Yeah.
But I remember more so playing with my brother. Hey, Anthony. He had the action figures, G.I. Joes, trucks, remote control cars, playing outside. That was more my thing than dolls.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Anthony, would he consider you a bossy big sister? Were you the caretaker? Were you bossy? What was that relationship like?
Definitely caretaker. He probably said I was bossy, although I think he's bossier, especially right now. Yeah, I'm the caretaker. I'm the older of the two of us. You know, we have more siblings, but it's the two of us that grew up together. Yeah.
Do you think you were mirroring those things that you saw in real life, like your parents taking care of him, and you were trying to like be that person when they weren't around? Or is it just pretty much who you were as a person? Thinking back on it now, how do you think you would have?
I think some of it comes in with being, you know, the older child in the household.
Yeah.
Maybe being a girl plays into that. You know, sometimes we say we're a little bit bossier, but the trying to take care of, I would try, but you know, we're 3 years apart, but we are, he's my first best friend is the way I say it. Although, you know, we've ebbed and flowed in and out of that over the 40 years, but, yeah, just, you know, being the older one, trying to nurture, trying to do what I thought was right.
Yeah. Now, fast forward as Donna,
emojis.
As Donna is developing, becoming a woman, becoming informed as to how the body works, you know, we're fast forwarding years now. When you knew for beyond the shadow of a doubt how childbirth occurs and how the whole process, did it ever scare you as a young lady? Or was it always something like, oh my God, I can't wait till it's my turn?
No, it didn't scare me. Anthony, our mother, was an OBGYN. Obstetrician gynecologist. You know, we would spend time in the office when she had to work, you know, and I think that I love all things around the pregnancy world, prenatal, postnatal. I'm just really drawn to that. And I feel like that has something to do with her. Little history there. Her mother passed due to childbirth complications having her. You know, so my grandmother passed within a couple of days of having my mother. And although my mom and I never talked about it, I feel like that was kind of a catalyst for her direction as her career. And so I was the one, I remember being in biology class in like middle school or high school where they showed a video of childbirth. You know, all the kids are like, ooh, you know, squeamish. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. You know, so I've always been drawn to it. I was never like, I can't wait to get pregnant, you know, but when it came naturally, I kind of naturally knew like what I wanted, how I wanted it to go.
Really?
And I welcomed it and loved it. Yeah.
Now, besides the story that you heard third party about your grandmother having problems conceiving, did you have anyone in your circle, like your friends or any like sorority sisters or anybody that was in your family that had a difficult time conceiving? Was that did you have any of those stories that you could possibly draw off of and understand the pain?
At the point when I made this decision or started looking into it, you know, it's not talked about. Fertility issues, miscarriages, it's not really talked about. And you can tell for a lot of reasons, you know, it's a painful thing to go through, and it's could be like looked at like what's wrong with you type of thing. So I think we all know people personally. We just may not know that we do. As I continue the process, I learned more of closer cousins or sorors or, you know, just friends that were having those issues that as I went through this, they felt open enough to share with me.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that because even with me getting older and learning about all the people that were around me, things like that, and I don't know if it's a Black culture thing, but we sort of like keep them quiet. You know, you hear about the big reveal, but the many attempts before you get to that big reveal, people don't want to talk about. And I was like, well, is it stigmatized? Does it make them feel like they're less than a woman? I mean, I just couldn't understand what was the conversation around that or the narrative built around that that would make people not want to share those experiences and possibly seek help. Can you go any further with that?
Some of it I do think is like, well, what's wrong with you that you can't have kids? You haven't had one at this point. Whether it's a physical thing, genetics, hormonal, whatever, you know. And so much pressure is placed upon not just women, just, you know, men, women, families, couples, or whatever. Like, you know, the clock is ticking. When you're going to have a kid? You know, you're approaching 30. Y'all been married this many years. I want grandbabies, as grandparents say, you know. And it's a lot of pressure, but I do think as a whole, fertility issues, I believe, aren't discussed across the board. Specific to Black culture, I feel like it's so much added on top of that, you know. Black women, you know, supposed to be able to do everything.
Yeah,
you know,
there is
the babies, nurture the babies.
Yeah, I often tell people when you go to family reunions, you will hear that one conversation, that one question: when are you having children, or when are you getting married? You know, as you're walking through the door with your casserole, that's what you're going to hear as a single person. And there's a peer pressure that comes with that. So your very first pregnancy with your son, when he was freshly out the womb, do you remember that feeling?
Yes. My pregnancy went great. My delivery did not go as planned. I didn't want anything. I didn't want an epidural. I didn't want an episiotomy. I just wanted, and I worked towards that. I did all the training and breathing and, you know, stuff to have a completely natural childbirth. 22 hours later, it ended up with a C-section. So that was a little, I don't know if I want to say traumatic. It just didn't go as planned. So it was disappointing, for sure. It was disappointing. I remember crying when they said, Donna, you know, we've been at this for a day. You know, it's time we got to do this. And so
now, the whole natural aspect of it was to protect the integrity of the birth or the child, or how did
everything. I just didn't want the extra jugs. You know, I felt that at that time I was like, you know, women have been given childbirth since the beginning of time. I didn't want a lot of medical interventions and interactions, the medicine affecting him. Real quick, like I was about 33 4 weeks, I think I was, when he and I were involved in an accident. That put me in the hospital for a few days and into early labor, and we were able to stop it. And so fast forward to, I'd already known I wanted a natural childbirth, but that kind of reinforced that I didn't want any unnecessary medication.
Sure.
So
your second child, your daughter, was it a lot more smooth, or were there any complications with that one as well?
No complications. Still ended in a C-section.
Really?
They are almost 19. Yeah, they'll be 19 and 16 in a week, a little bit over a week from now. So that was still, it wasn't as common for the home births and the more non-evasive childbirth, but both of them were beautiful. I just remember being on the table, my arms are spread out because they have to be when you're doing the C-section, and I remember when they pulled him out and held him over the screen, and I was like, oh, he was frowning, and he looked just like his daddy, and that's how I knew. We were deciding between naming him after his dad or naming him after my dad, Don, and he was frowning, looking just like his daddy, and that's what I said, and so he became the Coven. And they laid him on me, and I just remember saying, don't let go because I can't move my arms yet. So with Dea, 3 years later, it was a shorter labor. I think it was about, they didn't let me go 22 hours. It was about 12, a little bit over 12 hours of labor, and still in C-section. And I feel like I might have been more medicated. I don't completely remember fully.
You surrendered at that point.
Yeah. I do remember them taking her and having to do a little bit more with her right after birth before giving her to me and all that. But it was amazing. It's a beautiful thing.
So the topic at hand, surrogacy. What even gave you the unction, the first even thought to look into it? Was it an ad, a billboard? Had you been reading? Was it a talk show? How did it enter into your mind?
I think it was like maybe the 90s, mid to late 90s, where you started seeing it in the news. Like a grandmother was having her daughter's child and things like that. Then it would pop up in movies here and there. And I was like, that's interesting. I would do that, And then it just kind of, I never like sat and pondered it. I was just like, okay, cool. And then as it got older, and would talk to friends, and either they were getting ready to be pregnant or just pregnancy would come up, and I already had my kids, they would, I'd be like, I would be a surrogate, and it was kind of like, and they teased and we teased. And then I started to look into it seriously early. This was like mid 2000s after I had the kids, but didn't like really think that just anybody could be a surrogate, so I kind of let it kind of slip away.
Now, what you were finding out based on what you thought, what were those comparisons like? When you went into it, what were you thinking based on what you found out? Were they like jarring differently, or were they like, somewhat, okay, I did my research, I kind of know about this?
Well, the application process was a lot more intense than I thought it would be, but looking back, it's like, it should be. A lot of questions. They look into your birth. I have to submit the records of my labor, my deliveries from both kids, so that can be reviewed to see how my history was, delivery-wise, birth, and everything. They ask if, one of the things I wasn't ready for is one of the first questions, and it's asked repeatedly, is one, if you become pregnant during the process and the doctors determine that the baby is not viable, chromosome, whatever, is just not going to be viable, and the parents and or the doctors say it's best to terminate, are you willing to do that? And to proceed, you have to answer yes. And I was like, okay, yes. And then the next question was, if the baby is viable, but the parents, for the reason, want to terminate pregnancy based on whether it's Down syndrome or just something chromosomal, but the baby's still viable, and they wanted to terminate, are you willing to do that? And that gave me pause. I was like, and the lady's asking me over the phone because I'd already passed the online stuff, and I was like, and she was like, listen, we'll give you a couple of weeks, you know, if you want to take some time to think about it.
That's a
And
lot
I
to
was like,
digest.
yeah, that's a lot. That was a lot. That was
Yeah.
heavy. And it did. It took me about 2 weeks. I talked to some family members and friends and prayed. And I just came to the conclusion that if that were to happen, I just have to have faith that the parents, if they got to that couldn't be an easy decision for the parents to get to a point where you're asking another person to carry your child and then decide to terminate. That couldn't be an easy decision. So I agree that if that were the case, I would do it. But this was also after looking at other agencies to see if they had parents that said they would not. And nobody had parents that said they would not terminate, specifically, like for sure not. It was all always up in the air. So that, and then there is, since this, I do want to add this, since this is a saturated melanin, one of the questions on the application was, are you willing to carry, first asked about sex, like if you're willing to carry for a father, same sex, a single mother, you know, or a single woman, you know, all that. And then it asked if you're willing to carry for an ethnic family. And I was like, sure. I actually went into this wanting to carry for a Black family because I just figured there wasn't a lot of, you know, Black matches unless you did it personally, like in the family. And I was like, sure. But then that made me think, like, is there a question on the other side for the parents? You know, are you willing to allow a person of color, a woman of color, carry for you?
Carry your child,
Yeah, so didn't really know how to ask that question. You know, is that on the other side? You know, as I went through this process, but I've wondered, you know, that. But it's intense. It's intense.
Did you feel like you lost agency over your body at any point? Did you still feel like Donna was in control? This is your vessel. And from the way you're describing it, it seemed like it would be very easy to feel like you're surrendering your temple. And you don't want to do that because you will go on after this. So did you feel as though you still had license over who you were? Or were you feel like you were negotiating at certain times?
I did personally. I felt like I still had say over my body, autonomy. And I think because the agency that I went through, Conceivabilities, was so good at pairing us. It's kind of like online dating. I had a profile, all these questions, and then they matched me with a couple. I think they did. They're active. You know, the mom plays tennis, goes to the gym. The dad runs, not avidly, but they're active, and they appreciated the fact that I was active. They never told me to sit down somewhere. Although if I felt, because I during the process I learned that this was, I'm like, I'm doing this great thing for them, whatever. But it's also the humbling of it hit me when I was like, the amount of trust that these strangers had. And my couple lived in England, and they live in London. So to trust somebody, a woman that they don't know, that lives on the other side of the world, to carry their child. That puts you in my frame, like, I'm going to do whatever I can do to take the best care of my body and therefore take the best care I can of their baby.
Yeah.
So I've heard stories.
You're having these conversations, with the agencies and other people, but the conversations with your children, your son and your daughter.
Yes.
Like, how did you even approach it to them? Were there objections? Like, what were those conversations?
Special. If anybody knows, especially Day and my daughter, they know that she does not mince words, and she's gonna feel and say what she thinks. Initially, I feel like they were both teenagers or about that at the time, and so mainly it's how it reflects on them is the main thing. So for me, this ended up being like a 3-year process. We had it took a while to get and stay pregnant. So when I started this, I think they would have been freshmen and in middle school. So it was like, okay, but don't come up to the school. You know, how am I going to explain that my mother, who doesn't have a husband, is pregnant? They didn't want to, do that. And, what are their friends going to say? They're going to think it's weird and stuff. And I kind of told them, I was like, look, if you mention it or if it comes up and you're like, oh, my mom's doing this weird, crazy thing. She's like having somebody else's baby. It's not hers. It's these people. They don't even live here. We don't, all of that. Then that's how they're going to receive it. But if you're like, if you're just like matter of fact or like excited about it, then I feel like that's how they're going to receive it. Sure, some of them, especially I think my daughter's in middle school at the time, are going to have to go back to their parents and be like, I don't understand how this works. And they're going to have another conversation. But when it happened, they were, my son realized it wasn't that big of a deal. I was at all the football games, as big as can be. And my daughter, she learned the flip side, that it was fun to shock people. They were like, oh, yeah, your mom's pregnant. She'd be like, yeah, and it's not hers. And, the kids are like, what? How? And she laughed. She thought it was hilarious because they didn't understand. And so that summer was a lot of explaining to parents, kind of going back that my daughter outed me as a surrogate, so they may have questions. They're little, 7-year-old might have questions. But they took it in stride when it came. They realized they were concerned about how close they had to be with the other family. And I was like, one, they're not in this country. Yeah. Two, even if they were, the way we were matched, it was also based on how much contact you wanted. Some surrogates and parents want all the contact. I know some that have become godparents of the child that they had and stuff. And we were like, no, we're cool. we don't need weekly dinners. We don't need, any of that. You have your life. We have ours. We'll come together.
Did you worry about that attachment with the child that you were carrying?
I honestly, no. And I went into it with the expectation, like, okay, there'll be an attachment. It's your baby and all this stuff. Or not your baby, but you're carrying it and you'll feel the movements and you hear the heartbeats and all that stuff. But during the process, it's still, and I put this on my Facebook, that I called it extreme babysitting. And kind of like that's how it felt. It felt like I babysat for almost a year. And mom and dad showed up, got the baby, and, they went home on about their lives. Of course, I wanted her to be healthy as she could be, and cared for her in that sense, as I would care for, if I was watching a niece or nephew or anybody, else's child. But as far as like, I felt like something was taken away from me. No. And I've told, I think, my family that my bonus mom was concerned because she knew how I was with Daya and DK. And I was like, I think I would actually have more issues being, for me personally, being an egg donor than I would for lending my uterus. I think egg donor, that's actually one of my kids out there somewhere, would be more difficult for me.
Circling back to your children before we move on. Because you felt so protective of someone else's child that you were carrying, was there any guilt at all, thinking, wait a minute, am I putting too much emphasis on what I'm getting ready to give away as opposed to what I already have? Did you find out you had to balance and check your guilt every now and then, or was it something that was never a factor?
I don't think so. I think with them at the ages they were, maybe if they were younger, maybe if they were younger and I couldn't like be as active as they needed me to be. But I was at all the track meets through summer track in Texas. Went to, I was out there in that heat. Houston heat. I was in San Antonio for a track meet. I had a big fan that I carried with me and a big water jug. I was at football the entire football season. Even at the end, walking the bleachers, trying to go into labor, so I didn't miss, I don't believe, hopefully,
Okay.
maybe I'll check with them anything that I think they
You
needed
stayed
me
that
for.
full time mom. Yeah. And that
Mm-hmm.
question sort of popped up, on the fly. I was like, I wonder if I addressed that even in the questions that I sent you. And I think that I did. But I was like, I wonder if there was any kind of guilt that she was trying to check the whole time. You mentioned minor issues with deliveries when you had the COVID. Were there any health concerns when you were carrying the surrogate's child? That there was anything unusual?
No, well, like I said earlier, it did take, I had two miscarriages in the process. And
Okay,
then
so you had
one,
two
we had,
attempts before you actually got pregnant. Okay.
right, actually we had, this was a total of four.
Oh,
So
wow.
the first one got pregnant, um, birth, was it pregnancy test, all positive. And then you go in at, I can't remember how many weeks it is right now, 7 weeks, that you go in for the ultrasound so they can check the fetus. And that's
Okay.
when they went in and checked the fetus. We didn't hear a heartbeat and they didn't see anything. And so that was the first miscarriage. The second attempt was a failure. It didn't work at all. The third attempt, positive, got through all the third attempt was during Hurricane Harvey, I might add, which was interesting. That was everything was in Connecticut too. So every time I had to fly from Houston to Connecticut with a friend, my older sister Lorana with me the first time. My good friend Jackie here from Houston went with me the second. My line sister Katina went with me the third time. We got pregnant. We did acupuncture and everything. It all worked until we went to the ultrasound again. They could see that it was called a blighted ovum. So there was a sac in there, but the sac was empty. There's no embryo. So that was the second miscarriage, which that's when I started to learn more about that side of it, because I hadn't up until then I had two pregnancies and two births with my kids, so I hadn't experienced that. And that's when it opened me up too, is like, this is what these women and families are going through silently at home, the emotional part, the physical part, which I didn't know. It really felt like I was in labor after everything. Because I'm saying you're doing fertility, so you're still doing injections to kind of keep your body thinking it's pregnant. So once you stop, that's when everything kind of like, takes care of itself.
Were these parents, it was the same couple you were still trying to get pregnant for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you know of their mindset throughout the second and third attempt? Were they beginning to wane and feel like, well, maybe we should ask someone else? Were you privy to that? Because I'm getting kind of sad thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like all these attempts. Yeah.
They were, I don't know like the details specifically. I know that speaking with our doctor, the one that did the transfers, he was like, Donna's body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's getting pregnant. It's doing it. They know that I was trying. I adjusted my eating. I went like vegan as I got introduced to sea moss way back in 2016. Like before now, everybody's doing sea moss now because of COVID. Yeah. But I feel like we just didn't try to get each other's hopes up. Okay. It was kind of matter of fact. And then what happened? So after the contract was for 3 attempts. If the doctors and the parents felt like they wanted to continue to 3, it would be 3, no more. And so after the third attempt, which was the second miscarriage, we took some time. Everybody, took some time to kind of recalibrate and adjust, and then decide if they wanted to go again. And the doctor was like, we can go again. He was like, they've got a couple more good embryos that we can work with. Your body's doing what you want to. He said, after this, though, he said, if you wanted to continue as a surrogate, then I would suggest maybe a different couple, because maybe it's something on that end. I don't know what they were told, but eventually we decided to come again for the 4th time, and thankfully that was the one that worked. My friend Vanessa went with me, and her energy that whole few days we were in Connecticut was just like calming. I had acupuncture again, which I felt different. The energy, I just felt different. And then when I got home and the parents and I, talking back and forth. The mom said something that just kind of released me. She's like, look, the doctors are amazing at what they do, and everything. And they can only do so much. Eventually, nature takes over.
Yes.
You've done everything that you can, and you've gone like over and beyond what, you thought. And she said, but eventually nature takes over. So if it works, great, we're ecstatic. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's just how it is, and it's okay. And I was like, oh, okay, that just like was
a lot of pressure
a relief. And and so, but that worked. They got a beautiful 2-year-old. She was 2 in November. We did a little video chat. She knows me. She knows my name.
Did you see her when you had her immediately? Did you see her that day that you had her? Or did they take her away immediately?
Yeah, because the way it is in the hospital that we delivered in, sometimes, depending on the hospital, you room together or close to each other. But the hospital I was in kind of had like one big room, but had a wall divider. So they were on the other side of the wall, and I was on this side, I was in the hospital like 2 days. They were there for another day. So I saw her, and it was November. So because they're from out of the country, they had to wait to get like her paperwork and birth certificate and passport and all that. So they even came over for Thanksgiving dinner. And,
wow.
And things like that. Yeah.
So so I'm assuming that the feeling that you got when you had Jacobian was nowhere near the feeling that you got when you had the daughter for them. It was just pretty much, I wouldn't describe it as being transactional, but I'm sure it was just a different, more of a aftermath feeling. Like, what was that feeling like when she finally got here?
Yes, it was. And who am I to say? It's Jacobian, not Jacobian. So.
Jacobian.
Yes. The COVID.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It was, it wasn't transactional. This was another C-section, and Lord knows I tried. But this one was more the doctors. It's like, it was different. But I will say, I just kind of want to backtrack a little bit, that they were very supportive of me trying to go for another vaginal birth after 2 C-sections. They were like, do you? You know what you're doing, and I did all, but they even met my doula, and they, enjoyed them. But so she was there with me during the C-section, the mom was. And then this is the first time I got, so I wasn't too much information. I got sick during this one. I don't know the way, the calibration of the drugs, I got sick, and she was so hard, had to help clean me up. And then she got the baby. And I think when we heard the baby cry, like I cried, and I didn't cry during my birth. Like I think she cried.
The culmination of that journey in that moment. That's a lot of a relief there.
Yeah, it's here. And so she took the baby, and they moved her to a little room so her and her husband and they could, bond. And they have a older child, so they were all over there. And then my doula came in. It was kind of with me during the cleanup part. But but it was great just seeing them. They were like so in love with that little girl. It's beautiful.
Did you worry about your body bouncing back after doing it after so many attempts? And because you were past 40 when this actually happened, right? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Can you tell your
age,
girl?
Yes, I'm 43. So I was 41 when I had her. And a little bit. I was in pretty good shape, I think, going into it. And during,
you still look good, but honey, I was like, she's about to surrender this frame on behalf of someone else.
Yeah, I'm still journeying back. Yeah, I was kind of lean to it. I haven't gotten back there. My running time still haven't gotten pre-pregnancy. I'm still working on that. But I even ran a couple of 5Ks during the pregnancy. Well, the first one was definitely a walk. That was like August in Houston. That was hot. But the one I did in September, October, that was actually ran a lot of it. And that was great. But a little bit, because I had to remember, I was like, okay, I had my kids. I'm not 20 like I was 20 in my 20s like I was when I had my kids.
How to pay for you.
Right. Thank you. But so there was that, and the recovery was a little bit slower. I with my kids, I nursed them, I breastfed them. With this one, I pumped for a while, for a few weeks, just while they were here to provide some breast milk, which, you know, is supposed to help a little bit, shrink everything down and get your body reset. But I was a little bit slower because I was like recovering from the C-section, pumping, and I was like, how did I do this with a kid though? When I had my second, I was like, and I'm not even taking care of a baby, you know. But I'm getting there. I think so. I'm there. I think I guess I couldn't be too concerned because I still kind of have that urge to do it again, to go through another journey.
Oh, really?
If this one hadn't taken so long, I probably would have in my age, because I'm kind of like, some of the clinics I find are cool with the age. We're cool with me being 41, 42 after the other one and started, but it was they decreased the number of accepted C-sections. So I capped the C-sections, but not at age. And the other ones were like, it was the other way around. It was like my C-section number was okay, but my age was not. So
when you tell
but the body's a body.
When you tell people you did this, what is that number one question that most people ask you? Because I have my friend Gary here. He said he was always interested, but he never knew what question to ask because he felt uncomfortable. Okay. So when people broke that comfort, what would they ask you? What would be that one question, that one through line question that you always heard?
Okay, this is probably the first question, which is a question not to ask, is what's the money like? How much you get paid? That don't. That was the number one question. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot. And even like nurses, I had to go to the doctor. I was like, come on.
Well, that's the sensationalized part of it, because that makes the hype. Those are the headlines.
Yeah, you see the Kim Kardashian, type things and stuff like that. But the other one was about the attachment. The being attached, and again, to me, that was, for me, like during the press, before I got to that point, it was like, I expect some, but I'm going in knowing like it's not my child at all. It's not my it's not my good job. It's not my, they didn't use my egg. It's not my baby. So there wasn't that I have another child somewhere that they took from me. So
I gotta
that
tell
and
you,
the pregnancy part.
Entire journey, you are like cookie cutter poster child for them. Seriously, because it was like, I'm trying to get a sense of where you were and where you may have felt like, okay, this is a bad choice. I haven't gotten that throughout this whole entire conversation. So wow, I can see why they would possibly be like, okay, are you ready to do this again, Miss Dona? Because they know there'd be no issues with it regarding the whole process. So this whole entire surrogate journey, what did it reveal about Dona that you didn't really either pay attention to or that you didn't know was there before? What was your biggest takeaway about you personally once this whole process was over? Because I know there were many, but what was the biggest one?
The biggest one first, which I don't know, was mainly to me, was the humility of the whole process, and realizing how much it meant to me that somebody would trust me at this level. It also revealed, and I guess it didn't really hit until like you asking this, is that and I think back through the whole thing, the miscarriages, the failed attempts, the travels, the uncertainty, I'm single throughout the process of doing that. It just, I guess, my resiliency, that I'm stronger than I was giving myself credit for. I'm more capable than I was giving myself credit for. And thank you, Anthony. I love my brother. He's the best. And my sisters. They're great.
I thought Keita was on here. Keita, I'm going to meet you one day, sweetie. Because I hear you can cook.
She can cook. Rhonda could cook. Anthony's baking. I just eat. That's all. I just eat. We'll work out.
It's interesting because when Anthony first told me that you were doing this, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't think I've ever known anyone who's actually did this before. And then I compartmentalized and forgot about it. And then as it was getting closer and he told me about your trips to Connecticut and what have you, I was like, wow, this is like really huge. And I had questions then, but I didn't know how much to ask Anthony about stuff like that. So I just kind of let it go. But thank God for Soapbox Sunday, so I can get kind of satiate that appetite.
Yay, Soapbox Sunday.
You were a superwoman in my head long before this conversation, sweetheart. What you have done is nothing small. And I swear to God, you and the story that you told today is what make up the sum, the greater sum of this country that we live in. So I'm so grateful that you even accepted this invitation to tell this story of you bringing life into the world. You said you still keep in contact with them. How is she doing now, the little girl?
She's good. She's every time they text me or send me a picture, they talk about how healthy and happy, and they're like, "You're a great character. She's a happy, healthy baby." Even when she was smaller, she was 8 pounds, like 11 ounces. She's a big girl. And but the picture, she's always grinning. She's talking into stuff, typical two-year-old stuff. And they I don't know, they live out hopefully soon after we can travel freely and safely. I love to go over and visit. They've got a open invitation to do so.
That's beautiful.
So we're excited. We're excited. And I will say, can I say something real fast? Is that these trips back and forth to Connecticut, I had to fly through Baltimore Airport. Or I didn't have to, but I had some layovers. And one of my bestest friends from college, Chanel, lived in D.C. and we hadn't seen each other since '97. And that layover afforded me the chance to see her as she came by the airport. Hey, Chanel, I see you on there.
She's on here. Hey,
yes.
Chanel, thank you for jumping in the soapbox.
So that we could see each other for the first time in too many years. So that was another.
You hold it down up there, Chanel, girl. It's kind of crazy up there. You hold it down. Donna, thank you so much for jumping on the soapbox and telling this awesome story. I feel like this is the way I want my week to get started, celebrating the best of us. And you, no doubt, my love, are among the best of us in this country. Thank you so much for being on the soapbox.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Love
all
you
right,
all.
You have a good week.
You too.
Bye. All right, folks, thank you so much for jumping on the soapbox and hearing this incredible journey that Donna Woods was so graciously, just happily was ready to share. And folks, that's what I'm doing. I'm talking about and I'm emphasizing the best of us in this country. We've seen the worst of us this past week, but Soapbox Sunday will always be committed to elevating the strongest, the more resilient, the people that truly make this country what it is. I'll see you guys next week and have a great one. And folks, stay safe out there. We're doing it. We just got a little bit more of a fight to go, but we're in there, folks. All right, have a good week and talk to you soon. Bye.